Well, even though things were a little more quiet this week, power is shifting, alliances are breaking up, and the drama is just beginning. Hey guys, Cameron for this week of Big Brother 18, episodes 6 through 8, and damn, there was a lot to talk about. I mean, mainly for tonight. That's mainly what I'm going to talk about, but I am going to talk about episodes 6 and 7, but so much happened in tonight's episode, and so much is going to go down next week, and I can't wait for it. But let's get into this week, because I was really looking forward to this week. As we know, there was an HOH competition that was an endurance. We didn't know who was going to win. And let's get into that, because I'm not a fan of the way they're doing the HOH comps this year. I'm really not. I think, like, it really, for these two at least, this one, the one tonight, I really enjoyed. I'll get into that. But the one for the past 2 weeks, they've been really underwhelming, mainly because anyone can get it. There is no suspense in just volunteering yourself to get the HOH, because if you volunteer yourself, you can just take it. That's really how it is, and especially in the first 2 weeks, no one's really going to want HOH, because like I said, the best thing to do is to lay low, especially if you're a returnee. The best thing to do is to lay low. I think the only reason Nicole took the HOH is because no one else on her team wanted, so she just took it. And in this case, the same thing happened with who won it, this time. Basically, Category 4, they ended up being the winners. They ended up being the winners. Nobody wanted, so Paulie took it. Paulie's now HOH, and I was looking forward to seeing the way that this would play out, because I didn't really know where Paulie was allied. I mean, it seemed like he was going to be with the 8-pack, but he's not in the 8-pack, as we know, so I really didn't know what Paulie was going to do. And honestly, I think he has proven himself to be a really good HOH. He really did a great job this week, and I think really just was a really great HOH. I think he really knew what to do with this HOH, definitely, especially because when you're the HOH, you shouldn't just side with one side of the house. You should really listen to everyone. That's something that Paulie did do, and especially in this phase of the game, the beginning of the game, one of the best things to do is to listen to everyone, and I like that Paulie did in fact do that. I thought that was definitely very well handled. He makes his target well known right away, because we see that now that Jose has left, we actually start to see some of the revolution, or what's left of it, actually wake up. That alliance seems to have broken up, and I actually have been liking Paul this week. I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I don't dislike Paul as much anymore, because this episode, this episode in particular, this entire week, yeah, but in particular this episode, he finally woke up. He finally woke up and realized, you know what, I need to be nice to people, I need to start actually playing the game, and I'm like, really, Paul, welcome to Big Brother, really, Paul really, I don't think he realized that he was on Big Brother. He thought that he, was in power. He wasn't. And I like the way that Paul really handled himself, because I thought that Paul was going to go ballistic and he was going to go off, but that's actually not what he does. He actually doesn't throw a whole fit over it. Instead, he tries to ally with people he's not already allied with. And we see that him and Bronte, they're kind of by themselves, but him and Bronte don't even really seem to be allied anymore. And him and Victor are really the only two that are kind of allied right now. The thing is, Paulie makes his target known right away that it's Victor, because Victor was the one that really was gunning for him. Victor was, basically want him out, as did a lot of other people, but Victor really was the one behind it all, and he felt that, Paulie felt that Victor should be the one that he should get out, but he's not going to put him up right away, which I definitely thought was a smart idea to do. He doesn't just put him up right away, which is something that I definitely really enjoyed. But probably, like I said, my favorite aspect of this episode on Sunday night, which there wasn't a whole lot going on Sunday night. Sunday night, we found out a couple things, like how much Corey loved Christmas, and we had this segment with Natalie and James, where it actually seems like James might actually get that, because she actually seems like she's into him, so James could smash, guys. James could actually get this girl, and she might not be called Grandma, and she doesn't have short hair, and she's not gonna, she's not like Meg, who doesn't win competitions. He could actually be in a good spot, and honestly, I'm gunning for James to go after Natalie, because, like I said, Natalie, I think, is the hottest one in the house right now, and also, I think, in one of the best positions. She pretty much is allied with almost every girl by the end of this week, but we'll get into that in a little bit. like I said, there wasn't a ton of stuff going on Sunday. I think the most important aspect of Sunday was the new formed friendship between Paul and Paulie. These two are really tight right now because basically Paul decides that since Paulie's HOH, Paulie goes to talk to Paul because he feels he can trust him more. Victor, he's kind of worried about because Victor doesn't really hide anything. Victor just goes off and tells everybody what he does. So he feels that he's in a good spot. Him and Paul become very close, and he tells Paul, look, you're going to go up as a pawn. The only reason is because I don't want you, I don't want to be targeted and things like that. I thought he handled himself really well with that. So he does decide to put up Paul, and Paul was actually good about it. He wasn't freaking out. I was surprised he wasn't, but like I told you guys, when Paul's calm and collected and really just, doesn't just blurt out everything, he's actually a really good house guest, and I really think he could end up going pretty far if he continues to have the attitude he does this week, which is something that I definitely really did enjoy. But basically, make a long story short, he ends up putting up Bronte and Paul. They are the two that are nominated, and obviously we know there's going to be a third nominee in there somewhere. When we get to the roadkill, we'll get to that in a second. Bronte obviously is not surprised, but she's also worried because she was one of the ones that voted for Paulie to go out, and she automatically thinks that she's a target, which I think that she kind of was, but again, Paulie's going to use that third nominee to his advantage because he knows that there's going to be a third nominee, and he's hoping that he can backdoor Victor is his plan, which I think was a very smart plan of his to do. Definitely, I thought that was definitely very smart. Speaking of Victor, though, Victor proves himself to be, I think, a lot dumber than we initially let on. I mean, Victor at first, I kind of liked, but after this week, no, definitely Victor is not someone you should ally with, especially after what he does in the roadkill. Now let's just jump into the roadkill, because like I told you guys, I wasn't really into this last week. This week, though, I liked it. I liked the way this played out. I thought they did this one really well. This actually was a competition. It wasn't just who can take off their clothes the fastest and get naked. That's not what it was. Instead, this one was, all about solving math problems, and I thought this one worked pretty well. I was surprised that Bronte didn't do well, because supposedly she's a mathematician, but also apparently she needs paper and pencil to actually do well. Bullshit. I don't even believe Bronte when she says this. It's very hard to trust her now, but anyways, basically what ends up happening is Victor surprisingly ends up winning this. He actually ends up winning this, which I thought was very surprising. I was surprised that he actually did win, but he does. He does, in fact, end up winning the roadkill, and I like the way they did this. I think this was good, but I don't like what Victor does next, because he literally goes and tells fucking everyone. I don't know why he did this. I mean, do you realize what you're doing? One of the biggest things to do in Big Brother, and one of the best advantages you have as the roadkill, is that you are anonymous. You're just known as the roadkill. You're not, identified. So I think it really would be a good advantage if you just keep it secret. Don't go and tell everyone. That's not the smart thing to do. Yeah, totally. If I'm the roadkill, I'm just gonna go and tell everyone. Now, I will admit, I think his intentions were good. I think he wanted to just see what the house wanted, but when you're the roadkill, it doesn't really matter what the house wants, because you can just be anonymous and put up whoever the fuck you want to. So it didn't really matter in the end, because who Victor puts up, nobody really told him to put up or anything like that. There really was no reason for him to do that. So I really thought it was dumb that Victor ended up winning this. I mean, I wasn't dumb that he won, but I thought it was very dumb the way he did this. I mean, he had a perfect advantage of just, being anonymous and keeping his identity to himself, but that's not what he did at all. He went and told everyone. He, I think, kind of ruined his gameplay a bit, and that immediately got people to not trust this guy, which honestly, I can totally understand why they don't trust him. Why? Because if you go and tell everyone everything, then nobody is going to be able to trust you. If there's an important piece of information, you're not going to be included, because they know that you're just going to go tell everyone, and that's not how you play the game at all, and that's something that Jose did too, and I think that's kind of a common theme we're seeing this season, is that no one really is hiding anything. The people that hide things, they're going to go far. The people that don't hide things, they're going to get cut immediately. That was one of Devon's problems last year, is that she didn't really keep anything to herself, and I think she knows that, and I think that's something that she's doing well this year, which we'll get into Devon a little bit later, because there is a lot to talk about with her, actually. But Victor ends up putting up Tiffany as a third nominee, and I was interested in seeing why he put up Tiffany. I can understand why he did this. He doesn't want to go after any returnees because that's just going to create, a whole feud between them, and he doesn't really want to do that. But I think he also put up Tiffany because she's allied with people, but at the same time, a lot of people, I think, just don't really care. She's the third nominee, but of course, this doesn't really end well with what ends up happening there. But that's basically everything that happened in Sunday night's episode. Like I said, Sunday night episode was very much a filler episode. There wasn't a ton of stuff going on. There was a excuse me. There was a lot of just random this person liking this person, or like the James and Natalie stuff, or the Corey liking Christmas, things like that, and Nicole liking Corey, which I do like these storylines. These aren't bad. There just wasn't a ton of stuff going on, and besides the Paulie and Paul stuff, and then Victor, there just wasn't a ton of stuff going on, but that is completely different when we get to last night's episode. Wednesday and Thursday, for me, I think are the best episodes we've had this year. I absolutely love both of these episodes. There was a ton of stuff going on, especially in tonight's episode. A lot of stuff going on there. But even in last night's episode, there was a lot of stuff going on. Now, let's talk about Tiffany, because I was starting to come around. I was starting to come around for Tiffany. I was starting to say, oh, I like her, that she's not being like Vanessa. Fuck that, because she's exactly like Vanessa. She's literally Vanessa in black hair. That's literally who Tiffany is. I don't honestly notice the difference. It makes me think that Vanessa is the fifth returnee in the house when she's not, and Paulie, I think, did a good job. He just needs to stop his my brother Cody. Like, we know Cody was your brother. Get over it. Be your own house guest. Don't try to emulate your brother. Be your own house guest. That's how I see it. The same with Tiffany. Tiffany, I get that this is who she is, but she really is a time bomb. I mean, she's the third nominee. She's probably not that much in danger. I understand that she's crying, but it's only the second week. Just calm down. Seriously, pull yourself together. Really was ridiculous, and I definitely thought it was not, time for Tiffany to cause a whole thing, but this really gets people to not trust Tiffany as much. The fact that she's crying, the fact that she's really worried. Dave Vaughn immediately doesn't trust her because, basically the fact that she's just crying and things like that, it just shows that she can't really handle things well, if they can't put her up as a pawn. And that's something that you need in this game. You need someone like a Johnny Mac who will just go up as a pawn and do what you need him to do. Now, Johnny Mac, as we know, initially didn't want it, but he agreed to it because it just got him further. I think it's something that Tiffany didn't really think of. If she had not, had this whole freak out, I think people would trust her a lot more. Because she had this whole freak out, people aren't trusting her, especially Frank, who immediately doesn't trust her, immediately feels that she should be out of the house, and Frank is really not going to say just stirring up trouble, because that's not all he's doing. Frank is basically trying to get her out at this point. He wants Tiffany out. He feels that maybe she should be the one to go, and really she ends up kind of ruining things for the 8-pack, because the 8-pack is really wondering why did they include her, especially this Fatal 5 that's going on, which I forgot to talk about this in Sunday night's episode. There was a new alliance solidified called the Fatal 5, which is Nicole, Zakiya, Michelle, Davon, and Tiffany. That was the Fatal 5. Well, Nicole feels that they should now be the Fatal 4, because Tiffany, they just don't really feel they can trust her after this. That after this whole blow-up and everything, they just don't know if they can trust her as much, and that's totally understandable. After what she's doing, that totally makes sense why they can't trust her. I can, completely understand that, and that definitely makes sense as to why. Now, meanwhile, you got Bronte, like I said, who's really worried that she's gonna go. I like the bond that her and Natalie have. I definitely do like that. Natalie, I think, is one of the best positions right now because she's really allied with every girl. She's very strong about keeping the girls and getting the guys out, and that's something I think all the girls really are wanting to do. Besides the fact that there are some showmances going on, there's nothing really exclusive. Like, Nicole likes Corey, but I think she'd be okay with sending him out. Zakiya likes Paulie, but I think, again, she'll be okay with sending him out. And I think that's something that Natalie really is trying to do. She's really trying to form this all-girls alliance, and for once, I think it might actually happen. I think she might actually create this alliance. I think she could actually pull it off. Not yet, I don't think is the time to do it, but I think as the weeks go on, we're going to see a lot more of Natalie talking about we got to create this girls alliance, and we're going to see the guys want to go after the girls because guys keep leaving, which we'll get into in a little bit, but, the girls clearly are trying to stay together, and you definitely do see that as the season goes on. I think it's definitely going to be something that we're going to be seeing, throughout the season. Now, like I said, I started to come around a little bit with Paul this week, and another great example of that was the way he handled things with Victor, because he very subtly tries to to give hints to Victor that, hey, maybe you shouldn't go around telling everyone things. Now, he doesn't specifically say this, but Victor just won't take the hint. It's ridiculous. He won't take the hint. He won't realize what Paul is saying, and all Paul is doing is he's trying to tell him, hey, man, you're in danger, and you need to not tell everyone what you're doing. Victor is ridiculous, he's stupid for whatever reason, and he won't listen to him, but it was honestly pretty entertaining to see Victor completely clueless and see Paul really trying to just clue him in and tell him what's going on and see Victor not taking the hint. I thought that was pretty funny to watch, and I definitely really did enjoy that. But then we get to the power of veto, which, I thought the POV was kind of strange this week, because normally the POV is what, the POV this week is what the first week is, so with the spelling competition, and it wasn't that this week. It was actually this week, and I thought it was interesting that they did that this week and not versus next week. Whatever, they did it this week. I liked it overall. I thought it was pretty good what they did. The people that played were, you had Paulie, you had Davon, you had, I believe, Tiffany played, yeah, because she was nominated. Yeah, Tiffany played. Paul played, and, Tiffany played, Paul played, and, Bronte played, and then, who else played? I'm trying to think. Corey hosted, who else played? Paulie played, obviously, because he was the HOH. Those people that played, pretty much. Actually, some pretty big words, though. There weren't any, dumb words or whatever. They actually spelled some pretty big words, and Paulie did end up winning the POV with a very impressive word. I believe it was, I can't remember exactly what the word was, but it was a very impressive word that I was definitely very impressed by, and he very well deserved the POV, and he does get the POV, and I like the way, again, he handled himself, because, again, he really tried to listen to everyone. He really didn't know what he was supposed to do, if he was supposed to get rid of Tiffany, what his best option was. He knows, obviously, that Bronte is the one that he wants to keep on the block, because Bronte obviously wanted him out. He's starting to develop this close relationship with Paul, and you're thinking, okay, maybe he'll put Paul up, but he also might want to keep Victor in, because maybe Victor can go after Tiffany, and Victor could be a good reason to go after her. So I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe he won't put up Victor, maybe he will keep Tiffany, maybe Tiffany could be the target, and he even talks about possibly shifting targets, which honestly I just thought was really interesting. Everything that was going on here was really interesting, and that was something that I really did like, is that Paulie really was trying to listen to everyone, and I really did enjoy seeing that. I definitely thought that overall was very interesting, and I really did like that. But then we get to the POV ceremony, and Paulie does end up using it on Paul, and that was, so Paul does end up basically, he called it the power of friendship, which I thought was a little bit silly, but I get what Paul was trying to say, that they were an alliance, not really an alliance, but they're kind of very tight right now, and I think they're both in a very good spot. I don't think either one is thinking of coming after Paulie or Paul, and I think Paul has definitely made himself less of a target. Even though I think Paul thinks he's a target, I don't think he's a target, and I think definitely he's made himself less of a target, so obviously we'll go with what happens there. And then Victor ends up getting backdoored, so Victor ends up getting put on the block. Victor obviously is really pissed off about it. He really doesn't have any allies after this, but that is how Wednesday night's episode ends. And now let's get to tonight's episode, because holy shit, there is a ton of stuff to talk about, and honestly, let's just get into it, because there's so much to talk about with this one. Now, what ends up going down tonight's episode, I did predict was going to happen. The moment that they created this 8-pack, I'm like, okay, this is going to be like any other alliance where it starts up and then someone ends up blowing it up. But wow, I could not have seen it get it destructed any worse than it did in this episode. I mean, really, this really was not a good episode for the 8-pack, I have to say. Because you have the 8-pack here, and they're very slowly not trusting Tiffany. You can see that Tiffany, they see her as a time bomb. She's gonna freak out at everything. She's really not in a good place with them. She's kind of getting close with Natalie, Bronte, and Bridgette, and they're thinking, they're kind of getting tight with her, and you can tell there's definitely something that they're planning on doing. Tiffany wants to get out Frank. She feels that they should gun for Frank, that Frank should be the one to get out because he wants her out, and he's in her alliance, and she likes everyone in her alliance that's not Frank. Frank is the one that she wants to get out. Meanwhile, they're kind of campaigning right now to get Tiffany out, which is interesting. I honestly was wondering if they did possibly have the votes to get her out, but now that we know that Natalie, Bronte, and Bridgette are tight with her, I'm like, okay, most likely she's not gonna get out, because the fact that she's tight with Bronte, one of the nominees, and Natalie and things like that. So they're thinking of, Frank comes up with this idea to put Paulie in the alliance, to tell Paulie about the alliance, and I'm thinking, okay, he's going to make Paulie another member of the 8-pack. That's what Nicole thought was going to happen. That's not what Frank does at all. Frank could not have handled this any worse than he did. I mean, here's what a normal person would do. A normal person would go to Paulie, say, "Hey, Paulie, this is what, some would do." They go to Paulie, they'd say, "Hey, Paulie, there's this alliance going on. It's called the 8-pack. It has these 8 people in it, and we really don't trust Tiffany right now, but we would like to invite you into the 8-pack, and would you like to be offered a spot in here?" That's what a normal person would do. But that's not what Frank does. Frank is really starting to get on my nerves a little bit. I was honestly kind of liking Frank this season. I'm like, all right, he's in a good position. He's not doing what he did in Big Brother 14. But after this episode, no, he's doing exactly what he did in Big Brother 14. When he wants something done, it needs to get done. And that's a good way to play it, but not this early in the game. This is what gets people out. I mean, this is how Devin played. This is how Audrey played. And those people got out of the house very, very quickly. And I think Frank is going to end up destroying his game. And honestly, I think he single-handedly destroyed his game in this episode. Basically, he ends up telling Paulie, not about the alliance, he does tell him about it, but he says, look, if you can prove your trust to me, then you can find your way into the alliance. And I'm sorry, Frank, but you're not the one to make that decision. You're not the one that created the 8-pack. You're not the one that came with the idea of it. It was all, Nicole, Devon, that was their idea. You're not really the one that gets to do that. What he should have done is go to his alliance, say, guys, I don't really know what to do here. What should I do? That's what a normal person would do. But Frank is someone that's just so savage and just, I don't really know why Frank did it this way, but this really was probably the worst way he could have handled it. And this pretty much ends up blowing up the entire alliance and kind of single-handedly destroying the 8-pack. So the 8-pack's in a very bad position, but that's only the start of it. Because then you have Paulie, he's kind of getting cozy with Zakia, and then you have Nicole who's getting cozy, as we know, with Corey, and Corey already was in their lines, but Zakia talks about how the only people she really trusts right now are Nicole, Corey, Devon, obviously, those two are very tight, and Paulie, and she wants the 5 of them to be in a new alliance and get the rest out of it, because she doesn't really trust, Michelle. Well, she does kind of trust Michelle, I think. She definitely does trust Michelle, but Devon very much feels like a 5th wheel, and I kind of see where Devon is coming from. If Zakia likes Paulie and Nicole likes Corey, she doesn't really have any allies, and she's really conflicted as to where her loyalties lie, because before she thought she had all these allies, and now she really doesn't. So I don't know if Devon just made herself a target necessarily, but I have heard that Nicole's actually possibly planning to get Devon out, and I can kind of see why. I mean, Devon, as good as a player as she is, she's not the easiest person to work with. She's a lot to handle, definitely. I'm not going to say she could go off necessarily, but if she hears you talking shit about her, she will definitely come after you, and it will be very hard for her to forgive you. And we also know the way that she handled things last year, and I think that they kind of are worried that she could end up doing that again, that she's going to end up blowing up their game or something like that, or that she's going to figure something out, and I think they want her out because they just trust the other ones more. I don't think it's that they don't like Devon. I think it's just Nicole trusts Zakia and all of them more, and I think it's also because she knows she's a returning, so already she's in a very vulnerable spot. Those people are the newbies, and she wants to get tight with the newbies, so that way there's no vets versus newbies war going on. So there's kind of less of that war going on. So Devon's with James, they're kind of having this conversation, and James talks about how it's kind of every man for himself right now, and the only person he really trusts is Devon. Now, do I think that's true? No. James is clearly allied with most of the girls. I think that's definitely going on. And you also definitely see that a lot of the girls, like I said, it really does seem like Natalie is getting all the girls, and Tiffany, they're getting all these girls on board to possibly go after all the guys, because they want girls to win. They don't want any girls sent home, and I think it's actually very smart that they're doing that, because it's been a long time since a girl has won. Like I said, it's been since Big Brother 13 when Rachel won. That was the last time a girl won the season. And yes, girls have come very close, but they haven't won. I mean, yeah, you had Gina Marie and Liz, they were runners-up, but they were just runners-up. They didn't win. They want a girl to win. They want to ensure that a girl does win. Honestly, I think they could do really well if this does happen. If the guys find out, though, which I pretty much think that they they are, because Frank, Paulie, and James, this conversation where they talk about how the girls are starting this alliance and they kind of know this is going on. So I don't really know if they necessarily can do this, and they can do this secretly without the guys finding out. I think either way the guys are going to find out, and this can't end well for anyone, and especially the way the HOH ends up playing out. We'll get into that, but now let's get into the eviction. That's pretty much everything that happens before the eviction, but now let's get into the eviction. So this is probably one of the most unsure evictions that we've had. I mean, before I'm like, okay, this person's probably going, but I really didn't know the way this was going to play out. The fact that now there are people that saying they wanted Tiffany out, and then the other half said they wanted Victor out, or they could have gotten Bronte out. I thought that's what was going to happen, that Bronte was going to end up leaving. I thought that's really what they were going to end up doing, because they wanted to keep Victor so he could go after Tiffany, and they wanted to keep Tiffany so she could go after Frank. I thought that really was the plan, but that's not what ends up happening. It's almost unanimously Victor. Paul has a hinky vote. Basically, if you don't know what a hinky vote is, it's so basically someone will just cast a vote and so it'll be like, okay, who was the one that did that? Who went after Bronte? Who did this? It's honestly a very smart way to do it, but Paul does end up doing the hinky vote, and basically, Victor ends up leaving almost unanimously, and he had a really weird eviction speech. I don't know what the fuck it was, but I love that he was the only one excited to get back into the house with the battle back, which, by the way, guys, I forgot to say, the battle back actually is going to take place on a Friday. It's going to be all 5 competitions in one, so we'll have to see how that plays out. I think it'll be okay if we do it that way. I'm a little bit more on board with it now. You know, I was a bit upset about it, but if it's a way to get someone back in the house, especially someone who is going to, I think, throw a wrench into this girls versus guys thing and kind of split up some alliances, I could definitely see it happening. The 8-pack is dead. The 8-pack is definitely dead. It's not really happening anymore. You can definitely see, I don't know if it's necessarily dead, but it definitely is kind of fractured right now, and I think Frank's game definitely, he pretty much destroyed. We'll get into that. But that's basically what ends up happening in the eviction. Then we get into the HOH, which we actually did see the HOH play out, which I was happy about. This one I liked. This one I did like, because it wasn't just, okay, who wants the HOH, you know, just give it to them. That's not how this one played out. This one was one of those ones where you throw the ball, and whatever your highest score is, you're the one that won. And this is probably one of the most surprising ones, because I was thinking it was going to be Natalie. I was thinking Natalie was going to win. She actually doesn't end up. It goes down to Paul and Bridgette, of all people. Bridgette, who I thought was going to be the floater of this season, actually ends up winning HOH, surprisingly. Bridgette's now HOH, and I like this. Why? Because I don't know where Bridgette's head is at, and I like that. I like when we have a wild card where you don't really know what they're going to do. It just makes things more interesting. It makes me more excited to see how things are going to play out on Sunday night. See who she nominates, see what ends up happening there. There are a lot of possibilities. She could end up... Now, I know for a fact she's not putting up Natalie or Bronte because they're in that Spy Girls alliance. That's possibly still going on. I don't really know. I mean, they talk about it, but it's not really happening. So it seems like that's becoming more of an all-girls alliance, unless it's just the Spy Girls. I don't really know if the Spy Girls is going on. They've done literally nothing. We know she's terrible at spying. But is she a good HOH? I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't know if she's going to be a good HOH. I don't know if she's actually going to make a big move. Smart thing to do, I think, would be to go after... Now, we know she can't go after Frank, Paulie, and Michelle. Those 3 are safe. They're locked in. She can't go after them. I think the smart thing to do would be to go after a returnee, possibly. Get rid of, like, Davon or James or Nicole. Someone that's stopping the newbies. Now, I don't know if Bridgette can necessarily do that, because honestly, I think Bridgette's just too nice. I think that's the problem with her. And I think she's very much like a Meg, where she seems like she could be good. She's just way too nice. And I think that's something that Bridgette really needs to realize, that she is too nice. She doesn't have a mean bone or body, and while that's mostly a good thing, in this case, it's not really a good thing, and I think she needs to possibly go after someone. So we'll have to see how that plays out. That's going to be really interesting. But that's everything that ends up happening this week. We'll have to see the way things play out next week. Let's get into predictions for next week. Moving forward, I don't know what's going to happen next week, and I'm really excited, honestly. This really made me very excited now that we have the 8-pack split up, and now that we have Frank. Unfortunately, nobody can go after Frank right now. Now, I think the best possible option would be to go after James. James, I think, as tight as he is with Natalie, I think that the girls will very well try to get James out, because they don't want to get Davon out. I think even though, like I said, Nicole was kind of pulling for her. I think the girls are starting to all ally together, and I think that definitely is starting to happen. And you are kind of seeing not everyone is voting together this season. At this point, they are, but there definitely is some difference of opinions, and I do like that. I like that we do have some difference of opinions, not just what the house wants. And when you're in HOH, that's a good thing. And in this part of the game, it's a good thing. The first 5 evictions, that's definitely a good thing. But I think moving forward that we're not going to be as heavily centered on these teams. In fact, the teams don't even seem to be sticking together, which I do like. In fact, the teams have literally done nothing. I don't even know why the teams are still going on because it's pretty much as effective as the takeover last season. That's how effective the teams are. They're really not that effective at all. They're not really doing much of anything. But moving forward, I'm really looking forward to seeing how things are going to play out. Who is Bridgette going to put up? I don't really know. I think that's going to be really interesting. Like I said, she's really a wild card right now. I don't really know who's going to go next week. Things like that. I don't really know where her loyalties lie, who she's going to put up. I'm assuming Natalie and Bronte are safe because she's really tight with them right now, but aside from that, I don't really know. Obviously, people in Category 4 are safe, but other than that, I honestly have no idea who she's going after. We'll have to see. Really, as my guess is as good as yours. But as far as the 8-pack, are they going to stick together? Because right now they're kind of fractured. So are they going to stick together? Are they going to come up with some other plan? I don't really know. Da'Vonne is in probably one of the worst positions right now because she was very close with Zakiya, very close to Nicole. They seem to be kind of changing allies. And I think it's because those two are just in a better spot than Da'Vonne. Not that Da'Vonne's not a good spot. It's just the people that she thought she was allied with have better allies that they think will take them further. And I think if they're with Da'Vonne, I don't think it's going to take them as far as they think. Da'Vonne is not the best at winning competition. She's not the best at pulling things off, and I think that they think that they're going to be in a better spot if, say, Zakiya and Nicole team up or something like that. I think it's just a better spot for them. Also because, they're very quiet. Da'Vonne's not really that quiet. I think she kind of sometimes keeps things to herself, sometimes she doesn't. But it's very easy to tell where Da'Vonne's head is at. I think that's her biggest weakness in the game. I think she's doing a better job at it this year, but I still think it is her biggest weakness. We'll have to see the way that plays out next week. Paul, like I said, I think he's in a good spot. I don't think he's going... He's convinced he is. I know he said to Victor that he's convinced he's going. We'll have to see the way that turns out. But I did like what I saw from Paul this week. I definitely did enjoy seeing that overall. James's showmance with Natalie. Is this really going to happen? Is he actually going to get Natalie? I mean, I'm pulling for him, definitely. He didn't get Meg, but honestly, I think he might have a chance with Natalie. I did hear that she's into it, so maybe he has a chance with her. I don't really know. Frank, like I said, really is doing things for himself. I really kind of do see Frank as a loner right now, but we'll have to see the way that plays out. Overall, guys, the most you guys saw this week, how do you think things are going to shape up for next week? Definitely looking forward to that. I'm actually really enjoying the season. Wasn't as into it, but now I think that things are really starting to happen. I'm really into this season, really enjoying it overall. I will see you guys, though, in my next video. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode, Queen of the South, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.